So I feel like this is the kind of day that Ramie jumps out of bed and says, yes, give me all the chaos.
Man, give it to me. Yes.
Everything that
These
you've
are
got.
the days I love as an agent of chaos. Oh, man. The NBA does it so well, too. And it looked like a quiet day at first, didn't it?
It did.
We started our show meeting today and we were like, watch, nothing is going to happen. We're all going to be disappointed after rumors and speculation for days and weeks on end. And literally, we're wrapping up the show. We're putting together a little rundown. And then Chris throws in, oh, Kevin Durant just requested a trade. We were all like, what? And we had like a whole nother show meeting all over again. And it's just snowballed from there, man. Oh, all
right, let's stop you. Let's stop you because we got to start the snowball, fellas, if we want to hit the breaking news.
When it breaks, we have it first. Sacktown Sports 1140. Breaking news.
All right, so we've got some deals coming in, and of course, yes, we will get to Kevin Durant, which is the news of the day in the NBA. But we've got local news. Sacramento Kings.
Is it official?
Shams Charania tweets out, Malik Monk is finalizing a deal with the Sacramento Kings. Sources tell Shams and Sam Amick. So Malik Monk is your newest Sacramento King. And, this was kind of expected, obviously, over the last, I'd say, 12 hours or so. And the news is flying. I'm just trying to retweet everything at Nick C Radio. I mean, everybody is signing. Of course, we knew this was going to happen, right? Sean Cunningham tweets out, Ramie, that this is a 2-year, $19 million deal for Malik Monk and the Kings. Your thoughts, Malik Monk, do you like it?
I like it. It goes back to what I was talking about yesterday of whatever assets you have, whatever resources you have, pushing them to the middle of the table and getting guys that can help you win basketball games right now. I know we're going to talk about this later, but for me, if it was Dante or Malik Monk, give me Dante. But at least this team continues to put resources and assets towards a win now approach, which is not necessarily what I wanted when I got to town. But now that we're down this road, let's go. Let's keep pushing assets towards that goal and see what this team can do in 2022-23.
Of course, we want your thoughts on this. Malik Monk is a Sacramento King. 2 years, $19 million is the deal. You can hit us up on the text, 916-339-1140. You can call us at 1-800-920-1140. Of course, you can always tweet at us as well at Nick C Radio. And for Ramie, it's at Ramie is tweeting. Again, fast and furious deals are coming across the Twitter timeline. We will get to all of them. And let me first talk about Malik Monk, since you just had a chance to kind of take a look at that for a second, Ramie. As a player, let's first say this. The first thing I want to make sure that I get across to Kings fans is that this is a talent upgrade, right? This is an upgrade. Malik Monk is a good player. There's no doubt about it. He is a good player. He is a talent upgrade for this basketball team. We had this conversation before the show. Everybody has to make sure they have realistic expectations. And what I mean by that is you're not going to be able to just, go out there and get anybody that you want. That's not how this works. You have about $10 million to take care of your free agency action right now. So the 2 years, $19 million makes sense from a money standpoint. Now, when I look at Monk, a couple of things, Ramie, couple of pros. The Fox relationship. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox played with Malik Monk at Kentucky. They have a very good relationship. The relationship has continued into the NBA. They know how to play with each other. They know how to play off of each other. They truly understand each other very, very well, and they have immediate chemistry. So the first thing is you've got the Fox-Monk combination in the backcourt again. The other part of this that I really like is the shooting. When we went into this offseason, Ramie, we said the Kings need shooting. The Kings need all the shooting that they can get. And when you look at Malik Monk, Will_Zimmerly on Twitter last night tweeted these numbers out. Monk this past year, 40.7% from the corner, three-point land. He's 38.8% above the break from three. Catch and shoot three-point percentage, almost 42%. Pull up from three, 34.5%. And he can also get himself a bucket if needed. 67% of his field goals were assisted, 33% were unassisted. So again, this guy can shoot from literally every single spot from the floor beyond three. He can catch and shoot it. He can pull up and shoot it, and he can get his own bucket if he needs to, Ramie.
And that's why I like him. This does address a need for the Sacramento Kings, but the but here and the reason that you might have reservations about this is the Kings were already a bad defensive basketball team, and that was one of the stated goals of this team this offseason was improving on defense. It's a big reason why they brought Mike Brown in. He's sort of a defensive specialist in his coaching career. But at the end of the day, you need the players and the personnel. And Malik Monk doesn't do much to impress defensively. Last season was a career best for him in defensive win share, and he had a 1.4, which, if you don't know, that's not great when it comes to defensive win share. Like, the dude doesn't bring a lot of defense or, from what I hear, Nick, interest in playing defense to the table. So, yeah, you address the need for a shooter, but when it comes to the need for big guards and big guards who can defend, they didn't address that with Malik Monk. Like I said, I like the move. It improves them. It furthers the goal of win now, the playoff mandate, if you will. But it doesn't necessarily address all the needs that the Kings needed in their backcourt with the move in free agency or through a trade. Maybe they're not done. We don't know if they're done, and maybe there is somebody who fits that profile and fills in some of those gaps that Malik Monk does not. But as far as the defense of this basketball team, didn't get any better today with Malik Monk entering the fold.
Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports 1140. Your newest Sacramento King is Malik Monk. That's been reported by multiple insiders now. Sean Cunningham, our friend at Fox, has the deal at 2 years, $19 million. And you hit it, Ramie, right there with some of the cons, right? I gave you some of the pros, the Fox relationship, his ability to shoot the basketball, his ability to score the basketball, which is very, very, very important for this team. But when you look at it defensively, it's not great. It's not great at all. And when you look at this team now, let's say if Malik is going to start, because the other option here, like you said, Ramie, there could be something else that's going to come down, right? There could be a trade. You could bring in a starting two guard. But when you bring Malik Monk in and you pay him pretty much what is the full mid-level exception, you know he's going to be a pivotal part to the rotation, whether it's he's going to start or he's going to be the sixth man. He could be the sixth man off the bench along with Davion Mitchell. I would say if you're going to roll with a Davion Mitchell backcourt with Malik Monk, it's going to be a very, very small and undersized backcourt. That's what my concern would be. But defensively is the issue with Monk. And when you look at this, you know, he's a pretty good playmaker. He's 24 years old. He's friends and has chemistry with De'Aaron Fox. He can shoot and he can score. But number one, his best year was last year offensively, and he happened to have somebody by the name of LeBron James on the floor with him. So
that helps.
Yeah, that tends to help when you have LeBron out there. No doubt about that. And secondly, the defense. My concern is not just Monk's defense, but how it affects the rest of this team. I mean, when you look at this roster right now, and again, it's really early. A lot of moves can still happen. Trades can happen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when you look at this team right now, if you say you're going to start Malik Monk at the two, De'Aaron Fox, as good as he is offensively, we all know he has not been very good defensively on a consistent basis. His effort wanes on that end of the floor. So you have Fox, who's been inconsistent defensively, has all the tools to be good, but has not actually been good on a consistent basis. Then you have Monk. He's not a big guy. He is not a big guy whatsoever. You know, when you look at his size and the position he plays, he is somebody that is going to be picked on, so to speak, when it comes to matchups. So you worry about Malik Monk defensively. Harrison Barnes, if he's still on this team and he's playing the three, you feel okay about Harrison Barnes. Then you have a rookie, Keegan Murray, at 4. We all expect him to be good defensively. Will he actually be ready to impact the game at the NBA level on that end right away? We don't know. And finally, Ramie, we know Domas is not a very good defensive player. So you have 3 guys who are defensive weaknesses right now in your starting 5, if that's the way you roll.
And maybe they're saying to Mike Brown, hey, fix it. You know what I mean? That's your thing. That's what you do. You're a defensive coach. Come in here and fix it. Or maybe Mike Brown told them when he was hired, he was like, look, guys, this defense thing, Don't worry about it. I know how to get my teams to play defense. I know how to get it out of the guys. I know how to draw it up. We'll get the defense going. Just get me the best players that you can, and let's get some scoring in here, because at this point, that's the only acquisition they've made this offseason to improve the defense, Nick, is Mike Brown, is the head coach. As far as what they've done with the roster, like you said, Keegan Murray looks like he has the potential to be a good defensive player somewhere down the line, but you're not going to ask that guy to be your defensive stopper as a rookie and the number 4 pick in the draft. That's not going to be the thing that you ask him to do first and foremost. So I don't know where they plan on improving on defense, other than asking Mike Brown to do it all through motivating these guys to play defense, because you mentioned De'Aaron Fox has never really shown the propensity to play defense.
Right.
And I don't remember who the coach was that I heard say this way back in the day during the 90s Bulls run growing up in Chicago, Nick. One of their coaches, one of Phil Jackson's assistants, said, there's not a player in the NBA that doesn't have the ability to play defense. All these guys are the best athletes in the world. When you look around this sport and around this league, they're the best athletes in the world. Every one of these guys can move quick enough, can jump high enough, is strong enough to at least play adequate defense. It's all want to. And we know that De'Aaron Fox is a great athlete. I mean, he shows it on the offensive side of the floor. It's a matter of, does he want to apply that to playing defense in the NBA? And if he does, he could prove himself to be a very good defender. People talked about Kevin Durant not being a good defender when he first came into this league. And when he went to Golden State, they kind of put it on him, gave him the challenge of becoming a better defender. And now when Kevin Durant wants to, he can be one of the best post defenders in the league and at least help guys with big men down low. So it maybe it's there, and it just needs some water on the garden to grow as far as the defense. And maybe Mike Brown is the water for the garden. But personnel wise, they haven't done anything to address a major deficiency for this team, which is size and defense.
All right, you heard our thoughts on Malik Monk. He is the newest Sacramento King, 2 years, $19 million. Want your thoughts on this deal? Do you like it? Do you love it? Are you indifferent? Maybe you hate it. Maybe you're not a big fan of the move. We'll continue the conversation about Malik Monk and the Kings. And man, oh man, we have a lot more news to get to here in the NBA.
Keep up.
And we've got Kevin Durant news. We've got a bunch of other contract big time extensions being signed. So we've got all of that and your reaction to Malik Monk coming up. It's Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports 1140, back in about 90.
It's the new spot for local sports talk in the afternoon. Cattles and Ramie. Sacktown Sports 1140.
If you're just joining us, Malik Monk is your newest Sacramento King, backcourt mate of De'Aaron Fox in college, now backcourt mate of De'Aaron Fox in the NBA. I like the signing. I like the player. I liked him coming out of college. I think this is a good get for the Kings. Again, the one weakness he has that we can really point to is a rather obvious weakness. And, of course, I'm talking about his defense. But the spot that you're in, and Verlad's so happy, he just keeps playing that bump music. He's pumped. The spot
I've done that running boards. That can happen. I don't blame you.
The spot that you're in, right? If you are Monty McNair, you're not going to go out there and find, this flawless player with the money that you have. And by the way, Jason Anderson of the Sacramento Bee will be joining us in about 15 minutes. So you want to stay tuned for that. You're not going to find a flawless player, right? You've got to get the guy that you can get, the best option that you may have. And when you look at Malik Monk, again, defensively, he's not the guy, but offensively, he can fill it up, Ramie. I mean, this dude can straight up shoot. He can straight up score. And that was definitely something that you needed. And I see some of the YouTube peeps in the chat. Let's see what they're saying. Pistol Pete gives us a woohoo. He's all fired up. Philip Cole says, Monk, exclamation, exclamation. I like it. He has great chemistry with Fox, which we talked about. David Neal, I'm just glad someone wants to be here. Run DMG. Kings got Monk. Oh, hell yeah. So far, so good. Bellingham James says 2 for 20. I think I'd rather have Monk on that contract instead of Dante DiVincenzo. Ramie, you disagree with that?
I do. I mean, and Monk is a better shooter, but not by much. Last year was Monk's best year. He shot a little over 47% from the field, 39% from 3-point range, and almost 80% at the free throw line. And those are all really good numbers. And he was 40% from beyond the arc with the Hornets in 2021. But I mean, Dante DiVincenzo was not that far behind in his last full season with the Bucks before he had the injury last year. And he's a year younger. He's bigger by an inch and a few pounds. He's a better defender. I told you last year, Monk, his career best defensive win share was 1.4 in his last 2 full seasons. Again, before the injury, Dante DiVincenzo posted defensive win shares of 2.1 and 3.2. And as far as the offensive numbers, last again, full season, he shot 42% from the field, 38% from 3, and had over 10 points per game, 66 starts for a team that went on to win an NBA championship before he suffered the injury and missed most of came in late the next season and wasn't the same for the Bucks or for the Kings. But last time he was healthy, he wasn't that much worse a shooter or a scorer than Malik Monk, and he's bigger and he brings significantly better defense. If the move was not tendering Dante to bring in Malik Monk, I don't love that. I don't think that was the best swap or the best trade in talking about how you were going to use that money or those resources. I like Malik Monk. I'm glad the Kings are taking this win now course, or at least continuing down it and not sort of half-assing the win now approach. But if you give me the choice of Dante or Malik Monk, give me Dante 9 times out of 10.
All right, so you got Malik Monk with the Kings now, and you have somebody leaving the Kings organization. Adrian Wojnarowski just tweeted out moments ago that Damian Jones has agreed to a 2-year deal with the Lakers. So Damian is gone. This is not necessarily a shocker. I mean, you had a lot of centers on your roster. You got Domas, you've got Alex Len, you have Rashawn Holmes. And if you were bringing Jones back, you'd have to get rid of one of those guys, which you may inevitably have to do anyway. But the timing of it all makes it very, very difficult. So Damian Jones goes to the Lakers. And I know, Ramie, you didn't get to watch Damian this past year because you were in Milwaukee. I like Jones as a player. I really do. And he's extremely athletic. He's a good lob guy. He blocks shots as well. He showed this past year that he has some range to his shot. I think that's a good signing for the Lakers. I don't think it's going to sit there and set the world on fire, but for what he is and what he can do, I like that signing by the Lakers. And I'm bummed that he went to LA because I do think Damian Jones is a good basketball player. He heads to the Lakers on a 2-year deal. Lots and lots of news to get to.
How are you keeping up with all this? And how is Shams tweeting this fast? Like, has all this he knew this was going to happen? It's just been sitting in the draft.
Yes.
It's just been sitting in Shams drafts. And he's just hitting send on all of them. As soon as the free agency starts, he's just hitting send on his entire draft folder.
That is precisely what's happening right now, Ramie.
Insane. It's insane. I can't keep up with this.
I mean, we've got at least 20 to 25 signings, and we also have this news about Kevin Durant. So let's touch on the Durant stuff quickly here. We'll have Jason Anderson with us in, roughly 10 minutes. You don't want to miss that here on Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports 1140. Ramie, as you said, we're getting ready for the show this morning. We had a fluid situation. We knew it was going to be fluid. We had a kind of sort of rundown set.
Right, just a loose. Right. We were like, things are going to happen. We'll adjust on the fly as things happen. And then things started happening.
And then all of a sudden, right at the tail end, I'm about to say, all right, guys, let's talk in a little bit. And, JJ and Verlad are about to leave the office and all that stuff. And then Verlad goes, Kevin Durant just requested a trade.
Very understated, by the way.
Yes.
Verlad, you were way, way too calm about that. Raise your voice a little bit when Kevin Durant requests a trade.
Do you know how Ramie's voice raised yesterday when he went high pitched? Ramie wanted you to give us a high pitched Durant request.
Well, because we're all worried about the fake Shams tweet. I was only 75% sure that it was a real sham, so I didn't want to get too excited.
That is fair. I've gotten got. I don't know about you, Nick. I've gotten got by fake accounts, by fake Schefter, by fake Woj. I've gotten got and said things on the air that we're not true.
Carl Michael Dave might have gotten got last week during the draft. That's maybe one of the rumors that were out there. I don't know if JJ can confirm or deny that one. Can you confirm that, JJ?
Sources tell me that is correct. As he passed it along to me.
As he passed it along to JJ. And I was like, wait a minute. All right, so KD, quickly, obviously we'll talk more about this, Ramie, as the show goes on and talk about all of the signings that have happened and all of the news that is just flowing on Twitter right now. But, before we get to all of that, Jason Anderson, just your quick takeaway from the Kevin Durant. He's requested a trade from Brooklyn. He wants out. Your number one takeaway when you heard Verlad say that.
Dude, I did not see that coming, but boy, do I love it as the agent of chaos on the Cattles and Ramie show. This blew my mind. I mean, there's a lot of things happen. I'm like, oh, okay, I can see why that would happen. And the feeling that I get, Nick, after thinking about this for a couple of hours is all this time when there was uncertainty and friction between the Nets and Kyrie Irving since his contract talks started, we all heard Kyrie goes, Kevin Durant goes with him. Now I'm thinking Kevin Durant was just done with the Nets and was waiting for Kyrie to give him a good reason and a good excuse to say, I want out, without getting all of Brooklyn getting on the bad side of all of Brooklyn. But man, is this great, because the what if champs of the last 2 years can now have the crown removed, because the entire NBA has been wanting to crown that team for 2 years and running and telling us if they don't have injuries and if Kevin Durant's foot was an inch smaller and all the ifs with the Nets for the last 2 years, we can stop hearing about all that BS and just bask in the glory of Kyrie Irving burning that thing to the ground from inside the house.
He burned it.
Oh my God, I love it. Oh my God. And Kevin Durant, I don't blame him. More power, props to him for just being sick of it and done with it, man. And I sensed that in the playoffs at the end last year. His body language, the things he was saying, that was just a dude who was fed up with the whole situation,
right,
including the organization that was letting this thing spin out of control. And their answer was Ben freaking Simmons.
Yeah.
Like, that was their answer to put out the fire, was another guy who couldn't get on the court for the life of him for issues that a lot of us can't understand. So I'm so happy about this, man, for so many reasons. The chaos, the fact we can stop crowning the what if champs, the fact all this stems from Kyrie, is just so tasty. It's just such a delicious little treat.
It is.
What happened to the Brooklyn Nets today?
It is a glorious meal. My takeaway was that Brooklyn got hoodwinked. Mm-hmm. I think KD and Kyrie hoodwinked Brooklyn in the last week or so. We go back to Kyrie saying, oh, I'm committed. I love this. I am ready. I am ready to fulfill my 4-year commitment to the Brooklyn Nets. And then literally the next week, KD just happens to ask out. And don't forget that Kyrie's, his normal comment from last week as well, that he's not going to do the normal by opting in for the $37 million. Look, there's no doubt in my mind that KD and Kyrie were talking throughout this entire time. There's no doubt as soon as Kyrie was unable to get that long-term commitment from the Nets, he and KD talked about this, and KD said, fine, then I'm just going to go and request a trade. And as soon as I request a trade, you opt in, I request a trade, and now these guys are behind the 8 ball. I think they got hoodwinked by I think the Nets got hoodwinked by KD and Kyrie. We'll get your thoughts again. Continue with your thoughts on YouTube. You can also text us You always want to text us. That's fun. 916-339-1140. You can call us at 1-800-920-1140. Your thoughts, Malik Monk is a Sacramento King. We'll talk about that and more with Jason Anderson of the Sacramento Bee coming up next.
Sacramento has a new tag team in the afternoons.
You're talking to the original tag team of ugly pukes here.
It's Cattles. It's Ramie. Sacktown Sports 1140.
All right, so if you're just joining us, Malik Monk has signed, or at least agreed. He hasn't technically signed yet, but he has agreed to a 2-year, $19 million deal with the Sacramento Kings. Cattles, Ramie, Sacktown Sports, 1140. And right now we're being joined by the guy who tweeted this out. I mean, I'd say, roughly about an hour ago, maybe a little longer than that. Jason Anderson of the Sacramento Bee, our friend, joins us. He tweeted out about an hour ago that this deal was going to happen, that momentum was picking up. Jason, just first, your thoughts on this signing. Do you like it?
Yeah, I do like it for some reasons. I think there are probably concerns as well, but no, I like it. I think the biggest thing here is going to be chemistry. Obviously, we all know Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox played together at Kentucky and really just had an incredible year there. With the Wildcats, it was 2016-17. They went 32-5, and both of those guys put up big numbers together. They've remained close over the years, and now they're going to be a lot closer because they're going to be playing together in Sacramento. I think they'll be highly motivated to make this pairing work, and to work for Coach Mike Brown, and we'll see how that goes.
Jason, when Donte DiVincenzo wasn't tendered yesterday, I had a lot of people scratching their heads and theories, hypotheses out there that maybe this was setting up for another move. Was this Donte or Malik? Was this the other shoe to drop after not tendering a contract to Donte DiVincenzo yesterday?
Yeah, it looks that way. I can't say for sure, but it does look that way. This is the stuff with Malik, like I've been hearing about for the past couple of days. I heard really fairly early in the day today that it was going to happen. I kind of sat on it for a while. I was just trying to tie up some loose ends on the reporting side. But yeah, I ended up tweeting it out at 1:30 or so, somewhere in that 1:30 to 2 o'clock range. I was fairly confident in at least saying that, there were some pretty strong indications that they were moving in that direction.
Jason Anderson is with us from the Sacramento Bee, Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports, 1140. Jason, you might not know this just yet, but signing Monk to this 2-year, $19 million deal, have you heard anything on whether or not he is going to be the starting two guard for this team, or could he possibly be like a sixth-man offensive microwave kind of player?
I don't know at this point what their plan is there. I think that with Donte seemingly being on his way out, they were certainly looking for a starting caliber shooting guard. Malik is a guy who started 37 games for the Lakers last year, shot 39% from 3-point range. And he's still a young player. He came out in the same draft as De'Aaron. He was the number 11 pick that year. So young guy, both 24 years old. Malik still has some room to grow, and maybe the biggest thing for him in this equation is an opportunity to grow. And I think there is a good chance that he does move into that starting role next to De'Aaron.
The one thing that he doesn't address and is a major hole for this Kings team is defensively. He doesn't bring a lot to the table defensively to a team that has a lot of guys who also fit that profile. Do you think now that's where they turn their attention via free agency and trades to bring in at least one or two guys that can come in here and improve this team defensively?
Well, you would sure hope so, because he's a little bit undersized at the shooting guard spot at 6'3" and 200 pounds. The Kings have talked about wanting to add length and defense and shooting. Monk certainly helps in the shooting department, but not in those other two areas. So, this is a situation where, they do have more work to do in filling out that roster and trying to add defense on the wings. I think you hope that maybe, unlike years past, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, just with, Mike Brown and maybe his emphasis on defense and maybe being able to get more out of these guys in that way. And again, I think the motivation factor is going to be big here because De'Aaron can guard guys.
Right.
He's been asked to do so much here with the ball that it's really been, it's difficult to exert 100% energy at both ends of the floor. You know what I mean? So he now, though, if he's got a guy like Monk that he's got good camaraderie with, he can, I think they're going to be highly motivated, as I said before, to make this thing work and maybe be together for some time.
Jason Anderson is with us here on Sacktown Sports 1140, Cattles and Ramie. Jason, one of my first thoughts when I saw this scuttlebutt, as they say, last night, all these rumors about Malik Monk, I just sat back and kind of thought, this could be De'Aaron's team now. And I know we say, he's been here for a while, and if there is going to be a number one on this team, it would be De'Aaron Fox. Do you think this is Monty? I mean, first you can argue picking Keegan Murray over Jaden Ivey. Now he brings in Fox's friend, his former backcourt mate in college. Is this Monty giving the keys to De'Aaron saying, hey, it's now up to you to be the number one alpha?
Yeah, I guess you could look at it that way. I definitely think you build some goodwill here with Fox, who has waited and waited for, to have the right pieces around him. You make the big move for Sabonis last year and kind of, I don't know, clear up a little bit of that logjam in the backcourt where they had Tyrese and someone else who was a little bit ball dominant. So, I think there's an element to that here. And look, Fox is the leadership role for De'Aaron here has been a little complicated from the start. I mean, I was in that locker room early in his career and Fox was looked at as that guy and was kind of empowered to be that guy
right
under the previous regime. And in the previous iteration of this locker room where they had guys like Amon Shumpert, who was kind of the OG in the locker room and made sure everyone, recognized Fox for who and what he was. And then they make that trade and the dynamics changed when Harrison Barnes came in and they added some other veteran players. And it's kind of gone back and forth in a way. And it was never that, the Kings didn't want Fox to be that guy. It was just him growing into it, I think. And now going into year 6, he certainly had that time to grow into it and having his former Kentucky backcourt mate coming in, who certainly recognizes him for who and what he is. I think that only helps to solidify that role for Fox.
The other guy, and you mentioned him, that the Kings are hoping for big things from, and to be maybe the number 2 to De'Aaron Fox's number 1 is Domantas Sabonis. I saw him working with a shooting coach the other day. Was that something he took upon himself, or was that per request of the Kings saying you need to go work on that shot this offseason?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you that's one of the elite shot doctors that's out there right now. And Domas has been working with him, not just recently, but for a matter of months, I believe. And so I would not be at all surprised and in fact kind of expect Domas to come back and maybe be willing to let it fly a little bit more because he seems to have been working hard on it. And I think, obviously that's an aspect of Fox's game that could take a step up too. So, they need to add stuff, but they can also get better by just getting better and improving amongst themselves. And I think that's going to be a big part of what we see this coming season, where you have a full season together with Fox and De'Aaron, who really didn't play many games together, as it turned out last season. Even after the acquisition, both of them were in and out and up and down. So, you get a full season with them. You get some continuity with the coaching staff and some other pieces that they have in place, and maybe they can start to build on this thing.
Jason, we appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy. Let's do this again soon, my friend.
Anytime, buddy. You guys have a good day.
You too. There goes Jason Anderson from the Sacramento Bee on the Malik Monk signing and much more. I want to remind you, if it's time to get a new mattress, shop local at Sleep First. You want to take care of that. We continue to roll. A lot to get to here. Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports, 1140.
Just two guys rubbing elbows, talking sports, and lots of other stuff.
They always keep you on edge.
That's really crazy interesting.
It's Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports 1140.
So if you're just joining us, where you been? It's NBA free agency day, kind of, sort of. The actual free agency day is next week. The legal tampering period is now pretty much what you're looking at when it comes to NBA free agency. But a lot of stuff is going on. I'll get to all of the signings, and there's been a bunch of signings. Get to them in a minute. But if you're just joining us, Malik Monk is your newest Sacramento King. And I know, Ramie, you said you'd rather have Donte DiVincenzo on this team than having Malik Monk on this team. And we go to the text line because I believe this text is directed towards you, 916-339-1140. You're not getting it. The guy did not want to be a king, in parentheses, Donte D. He flat out told everyone, I don't want to be a king anymore. That's why they didn't sign them. Let it go.
Okay. I mean, I don't understand when that became like the be all end all, and there's nothing you can do about it when a guy says, I don't want to play for fill in the blank. Let's look at the 49ers, for example. Deebo Samuel's been saying all offseason he doesn't want to play for the 49ers. He wants to be traded. They're doing the right thing and saying, cool story, bro. You're under contract and we have contractual control of you through the franchise tag for 2 years beyond that. So here's an extension we think you're worth, or we can play hardball. If Donte doesn't want to be a king, okay, he can also make the most money as a Sacramento King. And you have the right to first refusal, so you can at least get something in return for him. And who knows, maybe something better than Malik Monk. I don't know what the trade market would have been for Donte, but bottom line is they had the ability to pay him more than anybody, and they had the right to first refusal if they put the restricted free agent tender on him. And that's all I was saying was at least get something for him or bring him back in the fold, because he's what this team needs right now. And maybe, just maybe, Donte was right in being upset with the Sacramento Kings organization for the way that they screwed around with his playing time and the way that it affected his contract. And maybe you just go to him and go, hey, man, you were right. And Mike Brown is here, and it's a new regime. We're going to give you what you're worth. We're going to give you the role on the team and in the offense that you want, and you mend that bridge. Oh, he said he didn't want to be here. Okay. Does that mean there's no way that Donte DiVincenzo could have been a king if that was the best option that you had?
Yeah, I'm not sure. And I'm not sure if he told him he didn't want to be a king. I know that he wasn't happy with the rotation stuff, but who knows if that turned its ugly head. It could be a money issue as well. Is DiVincenzo going to go out there and get a good deal, a nice hefty deal? I don't know. He might have actually made the most money by staying here. We'll see how it all plays out. I mean, free agency hasn't, as I said, officially even begun yet, but we'll see, how all of this comes together. And Malik Monk, I would think he's going to start next to De'Aaron Fox, but there is the possibility maybe you have an upgrade over Malik Monk and you put him on the bench as the sixth man, that instant offense kind of guy coming off of the bench. So I think we've got to wait to see how this fully comes together. But it is an interesting question, DiVincenzo versus Monk. By the way, time to check out Coastside Medical Clinic, dedicated to providing breakthrough remedies for men. All right, CV, let's see how quickly I can get through this. Hit my music. Ramie, did you know that roughly 30 deals have been agreed upon in the NBA in the first half hour of the legal tampering period?
I was not aware of the actual number, but I do know it had my head spinning, so I knew it was a lot.
That is according to Mark Stein. 30 deals. All right, let's try to run through these. First of all, the Miami Heat have reportedly submitted a trade offer for Donovan Mitchell. So
isn't Dwayne Wade a part owner of the Utah Jazz?
He is.
I call shenanigans. And tampering on the whole thing.
I'm with you. I double the shenanigans.
Right.
By the way, you would like to know this, Kings fans. Another deal that just came across that I can tell you. Old friend. I don't know if we'd call him a friend. Marvin Bagley III has agreed to a deal with the Pistons. 3 years, $37 million. So Marvin Bagley III is going to get more than $12 million per from the Pistons. All right, let's run through these deals. Free agent Lou Dort, 5 years, $87.5 million to stay with Oklahoma City. Free agent Bobby Portis, your guy, my guy, Ramie, is going to stay with the Bucks. This was not a surprise. He signs a 4-year, $49 million deal with the Bucks. The fourth year is a player option. That's the most he could have gotten from Milwaukee. Your thoughts on that, Ramie?
I mean, I selfishly wanted him to sign with the Kings so I could watch him play basketball 82 games, because he's endlessly entertaining and brings a lot to the table that the Kings need. But that soft spot I have in my heart for the city of Milwaukee and the Bucks is warmed by Bobby Portis heading back to Milwaukee, or staying with Milwaukee.
All right, Bradley Beal agrees to a 5-year, $251 million contract to stay with the Wizards. That's not a surprise. Nikola Jokic gets the 5-year supermax to stay. That's not a surprise. Devin Booker is finalizing a 4-year, $214 million supermax. Again, not a surprise. This is kind of a random signing. The Nuggets agree to a deal with DeAndre Jordan. Why? Why is that guy going?
That happened quick too, didn't it? Wasn't that one of the first signings? Like, the Nuggets just couldn't wait to get DeAndre Jordan in the mix.
The Nuggets were pumped and jacked to leak out the DeAndre Jordan signing. They're like, wait a minute, just wait until what we've got here. Mo Bamba, who was on my list. Bobby Portis was on our list. Mo Bamba was on my list. And it looks like, if the Kings were interested in Bamba, they could have got him, because he signed a 2-year, $21 million deal with the Magic, which is pretty much what he would have been able to receive on the full MLE. So he's staying with the Magic on a 2-year deal. A name that a lot of people brought up on YouTube and other places, Victor Oladipo, Ramie, has agreed to a 1-year, $11 million deal. He's going to stay with the Miami Heat. The New York Knicks, aside from signing Jalen Brunson to a 4-year, $104 million deal, they signed Isaiah Hartenstein from the Clippers, 2 years, $16.7 million. The Trailblazers, Anthony Simons, 4 years, $100 million, contract extension. He's staying. Nicholas Batum, 2 years, $22 million. He's staying with the Clippers. PJ Tucker, 3 years, $33.2 million, fully guaranteed. He is going to Philadelphia, and we talked about that a little bit yesterday. He is kind of the perfect dog that the 76ers need. Free agent Tyus Jones returning to the Grizzlies, 2 years, $30 million. Joe Ingles agrees to a 1-year deal with the Milwaukee Bucks for about $6.5 million. Wesley Matthews returning to the Bucks. Javon Carter returning to the Bucks. I told you a little bit earlier, Damian Jones, 2-year deal with the Lakers. Amir Coffey has agreed to a 3-year deal, $11 million with the Clippers. Chris Boucher returns to the Raptors, 3 years, $35.25 million. Old friend Dwayne Dedman agrees to a 2-year, $9 million deal. Friend, loosely. Returns to the Miami Heat on that deal. Thaddeus Young, 2 years, $16 million with the Toronto Raptors. Whew, I'm not quite done yet. Have a couple of others to let you know about. I told you Marvin Bagley, 3 years, $37 million to the Pistons. And finally, Danilo Gallinari is going to be bought out by the Spurs. It looks like the Bulls and the Celtics are battling for his services. According to Jake Fisher, Boston appears to be Gallo's preferred landing spot.
You okay? You all right? You need a break?
I'm all right.
Did you see who broke the Joe Ingles signing?
Who's that?
For the Milwaukee Bucks? It was his wife.
Nice.
She beat both Shams and Woj to the punch.
Mrs. Ingles jumping in.
It out. Yeah. She said sources very close to free agent Joe Ingles can confirm that he has agreed to a 1-year deal with the Bucks. CEO of the house, Renee Ingles, is thrilled for Joe and their family. Joe himself is said to be very bucking happy.
Oh,
straight from her
cute
Twitter
little play
Renee
on words.
Ingles.
Yeah. I want to remind you, by the way, Summer League's coming up. Carmichael Dave, Jason Ross will be down there in Vegas, along with Frankie Cardacelli and Chris Watkins from SacktownSports.com. We'll have all of your coverage of the Summer League. It should be awesome. That Monday through that Wednesday, 11th, 12th, and 13th. And all of the coverage is brought to you by Power Business Technology. Find them online, powercopiers.com. It's a busy day. We'll continue to keep going. Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports, 1140.
I got time to grab a cup of coffee here, Chris.
Cattles and Ramie. Sacktown Sports 1140.
Busy day on this Thursday. Thanks for joining us as always. We appreciate you. A lot going on. NBA legal tampering period has begun, which is really, the free agency time of year. I mean, we used to wait for the day of free agency to come about, but this legal tampering period by the NBA is, for all intents and purposes, free agency day. And there's been a bunch of deals that have been signed. I just ran through many of them. More than 30 deals have been agreed upon in the NBA already, and we're only 1 hour in. But I would like to kind of reset for the people who are just jumping in their cars now to give you the latest information on the Kings. So first of all, the biggest news of the day, Malik Monk has agreed to a 2-year, $19 million deal to join the Kings. Of course, this puts De'Aaron Fox back with his former backcourt mate at Kentucky. So that's obviously a nice little chemistry fix there for this backcourt with Fox and Monk. I like the signing. I think this is a good get by the Kings. He can shoot. He can score. He can get you a bucket when you need a bucket. He can actually also do a little bit of playmaking for you as well, which is a nice little addition. Obviously, one of the flaws, his massive flaw, if you want to call it that, is defensively. He did play better defensively last year, but he's still barely scratching as an average guy on that end. So, you give up a little on defense, you add a lot of offense. I like the signing, Ramie. Your thoughts now that you've had an hour to kind of soak this in, Malik Monk to the Kings?
I like it too. I liked it when we started the show, and I still like it now. I still and more people. You're now sending them to me on Twitter now, Nick. More people are saying I don't get it when it comes to Dante DiVincenzo.
Wacky Starfish is calling you out.
I just don't get it. Maybe I don't get it. I think I get it, and I think that you at least could have gotten something for that guy rather than non-tendering him and letting him walk away in free agency for nothing. But my whole thing has been, hey man, if we're going down this win now playoff mandate road, then let's go down it. Let's go 100 miles an hour down it and use whatever assets, whatever resources you have to that end. And Malik Monk is a guy that you bring in and he helps you win basketball games right now. He addresses the need that you have for some shooting and some scoring. And like you said, he obviously has the chemistry and the friendship and the history with De'Aaron Fox. And that's great. Also, by the way, great potential for like a nickname there with Fox and Monk. That sounds like an 80s like buddy cop duo, Fox and the Monk. So you got that going, and that fine. It's good. If it was Dante or Monk for me, it would. I'm taking Dante, but Malik Monk is a good player. This team is better today than they were yesterday and moving closer to being a playoff team, which is apparently the goal for this franchise. So let's go.
So, when you look at this and how it affects the rest of the team and what this starting five looks like now, if you're going to say that Monk is going to start, which I think is the premise, I think we believe. And by the way, Lonnie Walker just went to the Lakers, which is a great signing by them. That angers me. But if you're gonna look at Monk as your starting two, which I think right now we would, well, you've got De'Aaron Fox. You've got Monk at the 2. I would imagine you have Harrison Barnes at the 3, Keegan Murray at the 4, and Domas at the 5. And what you have is you've got 3 guys that can get you a bucket, right? You would expect Fox to be able to get you a bucket when you need one. Monk has that ability as well. And I think Keegan Murray has that ability. He's not a big ISO guy, but he can get you a bucket. So you've got 3 guys that can score the basketball. And I think you've got 3 guys. If Foxy can up that shooting percentage from 3 to about 35, 36%, you've got 3 guys that can score at all 3 levels. Actually, 4 guys when you put Barnes in there. So I think if you're Mike Brown and you're looking at this team offensively, you're playing, I would think, 4 out and 1 in. And what that means is you got 4 dudes that are playing outside, playing around the 3-point line perimeter, and you've got Domas inside the paint as the facilitator. You go through him. So you can play 4 out and 1 in offensively, and you've got guys who could shoot. On the defensive end, I do think that's going to be an issue. I have some concerns. Now, it's going to be up to Fox to really amp it up and play better, consistent defense than we've seen him do. So, some other news for the Kings. Damian Jones is officially gone. He signed a 2-year deal with the Lakers. That's another good deal for LA. Gets me angry. So Damian Jones and Lonnie Walker with like no money. I'm not thrilled by that. And we also have this from Matt George. He tweets out that there is not much interest in Richaun Holmes right now. He tweets out, "I'm told there's not much interest in Holmes on the trade market, but Mike Brown is a big fan of the versatile big man. Expectations currently are that number 22 will be a King next season." I'm not necessarily surprised by the lack of interest in Holmes. The center market is pretty deep. And you also look at, his domestic violence, situation and the accusations from his spouse and his child is involved. We had that story a couple of months ago. So I'm not too surprised. The tough thing for the Kings is, I just don't see Holmes as a fit. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't see him as a fit next to Domas. Now, if you tell me he's going to give you 10, 15 minutes a night as the backup center and you're going to get rid of Alex Len, then okay, I can kind of see that better. I don't think Domas and Holmes will play together. I just don't see that happening.
I agree with, his name is escaping me right now. Our guest last hour. Sorry, I'm new to the show. But when he said that maybe their greatest avenue for improvement, Nick, is from within, is for them to just get better rather than the signings and the trades and everything else. And maybe a lot of that is going to fall on Mike Brown now, fair or not. Maybe a lot of these things that we're talking about, Richaun Holmes reaching his potential and being a guy who's a contributor for this team and a better fit than he has been in the past, the defensive deficiencies of this basketball team, maybe they're just counting on Mike Brown to come in and fix some of this stuff through the coaching perspective. Maybe that is where they see the greatest avenue, the greatest potential for improvement in this basketball team and where some of their flaws and some of their holes are. And if that's the approach, I guess I can get behind that. Coaching can make a world of difference, and getting the right guy with the right plan and the right message for a roster like the Sacramento Kings can go a long way. So maybe that's how they plan on addressing some of these weaknesses and deficiencies that they haven't yet addressed in terms of personnel.
Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports 1140. Your thoughts on this deal? Malik Monk goes to the Kings, 2 years, $19 million. Both Ramie and I like the deal. We want your thoughts. You can always text into the show at 916-339-1140. You can call in at 1-800-920-1140. Follow us on Twitter at Nick C Radio and at Ramie is tweeting. And by the way, hit up the YouTube page. Got a bunch of people following us today on YouTube. You want to click that thumbs up button, and you also want to subscribe for us as we grow this brand out more and more, Sacktown Sports 1140. So you can comment in there as well as we look at someone by the name of Super Solid asking where Jason Ross is. My goodness. When's the last time you listened to the station? Jason Ross hasn't been in afternoons in a solid, 6 months? He's in the morning. Super Solid. He's in the morning with Carmichael Dave. I'll help you out there. He's been there since January. So there you have it. The other big news in the NBA, of course, we're talking across the country, is Kevin Durant, Ramie. And Kevin Durant has officially requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. And reportedly, the Phoenix Suns are his preferred destination. That's where he wants to go. Does that make sense to you, Ramie? Do you like the idea of Phoenix and KD?
I can see why he'd want to go there. I mean, that's a championship-ready basketball team. And no shot to Kevin Durant. I know a lot of people get on his case about this, but he has a history for chasing that ring via wherever he goes and whoever he goes to play with. He did it when he went to Golden State. He thought they were putting together another super team when he went to Brooklyn, and all they ended up being was the what-if champs for the last couple of years. And now he has the opportunity to go and team up with Chris Paul and Devin Booker as a second scoring option for a basketball team.
My word.
What in the world is going on when Devin Booker is your second scoring option? I'll tell you what's going on. Kevin Durant is your first scoring option, because not too many guys are going to bump Devin Booker to number 2. But that's a team that was in the finals just a year ago that a lot of people had penciled into the finals this year. Great head coach, Hall of Fame player in Chris Paul, Hall of Fame talent in Devin Booker, good supporting cast around those guys. I don't know how much of that supporting cast they're going to have to give up if they do pull off a Kevin Durant trade, but it makes perfect sense to me. And I can see why KD would want to go there. And I can see why anybody would want a Kevin Durant. Was it Woj or Shams that tweeted earlier today that more than half the league have inquired with the Nets about Kevin Durant since news of his trade request went public?
Yeah.
Everybody would like to have a Kevin Durant. I can see why Durant would want to be a member of the Phoenix Suns. Makes sense to me.
And the deal that would make sense, now there's some rumors out there that the Nets are not interested. Again, not interested in DeAndre Ayton. But if they were interested, Ayton, Bridges, Cam Johnson, a bunch of picks, that trade would make some sense. I do think, though, when you look at this Phoenix thing, look, 100% you do it. Nobody get it twisted. If you're Phoenix, you make this deal 10 times out of 10. You bring Kevin Durant in, and for at least the next 2 years or so, you're going to be the favorites to win the title. So you absolutely make this deal. However, I would warn people that think this is like, oh, no doubt about it, they're going to win the title if they bring Durant in. Let's not forget that Durant's 34 years old.
Yep.
Chris Paul is 37 years old, and both guys have injury histories. So it's a deal, again, you have to make if you're Phoenix. You make it 10 out of 10 times, but you have to also keep your fingers crossed because you're banking on 2 guys who are in their mid to late 30s staying healthy and performing at a high level, not only through the regular season so you can get a top seed, but also through the postseason, Ramie.
You know what's funny to me? I just started laughing mid-sentence because of a thought that occurred to me. That was rude. That's rude of me, Nick. But it was a funny thought that occurred to me. The Nets have finally learned their lesson. Like, this is where they draw the line with guys who don't show a lot of interest in wanting to play basketball. They're like, we don't want anything to do with DeAndre Ayton. They fell for it with Kyrie. They fell for it with James Harden. They fell for it with Ben Simmons. This is like they put their hand on the stove 3 times, and then the 4th time when it came to DeAndre Ayton, they're like, nah, we've been burned too many times. We're going to pass on DeAndre. It seems like they finally have learned their lesson with basketball players who seem to have relatively little interest in playing basketball, with the Kyries and the Hardens and the Ben Simmons of the world. Now they're drawing the line with DeAndre. Good for them. Good for them for finally learning that lesson. But it's just funny to me that it took burning your hand on the stove 3 times before you were like, not sticking my hand in that fire again.
He's Ramie, Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports 1140. You can give us a call at 1-800-920-1140. You can text us 916-339-1140. Check out the website. We've got all your news. Of course, I'm Malik Monk. Got a story up there. Jason Anderson's interview we had with him last hour. Sacktownsports.com is the new website. Check it out. It is a beautiful thing. Time to get a new mattress. Don't forget, shop local at Sleep First. Ramie and I continue to roll along with NBA free agency in 90 seconds.
trying to get you home after another long day and through the drive time afternoon traffic. Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports 1140.
Summer League coverage coming up. Carmichael, Dave, Jason Ross will be down in Vegas July 11th, 12th, and 13th. You want to listen to them. We'll also have Frankie Cardicelli and Chris Watkins down there as well as part of the digital team, Sacktown Sports 1140. Our coverage of the Summer League brought to you by Power Business Technology. Find them online at powercopiers.com. I just tweeted out a poll question for all of you. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick C Radio, at Nick C Radio. Your grade for the Malik Monk signing. Option A is A. Option B is B. Option C is C. Option D is D. A, B,
How'd we
C,
come
D.
up with that?
Very creative people. We worked for a solid hour since the signing to put that one together. So you let me know what your grade is for the signing, A, B, C, or D, at Nick C Radio. How do you feel about this Malik Monk signing? Let's see. Mike Salter, YouTube. He puts in the chat window, I like this move. Not a blockbuster, but has potential. 3 very quick guards now on the roster. He looked good on defense, and he was hustling every time I watched the Kings play the Lakers. Again, Malik Monk, he's not known as a good defender. I would not expect him to be a very good defender, but he was better last year. He wasn't a complete disaster on that end. And if Monk can give you what he can give you offensively and not be a complete disaster on the defensive end, then the signing is even better. And I like it, and Ramie likes it. But if he can,
are we grading on a curve with your A, B, C, and D? Are we grading on a and the curve that I mean is like realistic expectations of what this Kings team is going to do in this offseason? Like in the big picture, getting Kevin Durant is an A+, but I don't think that was ever an option for the Sacramento Kings, or will be an option for the Sacramento. So do we grade on a curve here, Nick, in grading the Malik Monk signing?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that you have to include, your reasonable expectations beyond, what you're doing. Here's something interesting, by the way, Ramie. And the question, that poll question has also been put up in the YouTube channel, so you can check that out. YouTube, Sacktown Sports 1140. Click the thumbs up button and also subscribe. Help us out with growing this channel. Interesting stuff happening right now with the Nets off of this Kevin Durant trade request. And what I find interesting, and I wanted your thoughts on this, Ramie, they get the request from KD, and their next couple of moves fascinate me. They end up trading a first-round pick for Royce O'Neal. It's going to be the lesser of the pick between, the Houston, Philadelphia, and their own pick. But they trade a first-round pick in 2023 for Royce O'Neal. That's a win-now move. They then agree to a contract today with Patty Mills, 2 years, $14.5 million. That's a win-now move. And then they also just agreed to a deal with restricted free agent Nick Claxton on a 2-year, $20 million deal. All 3 of those moves are win-now moves. And I think that tells us, how difficult the Nets are, how difficult of a situation the Nets are kind of stuck in here, because they don't really have any, they don't have any future picks that they can be excited about. And they're in this rock and a hard place where, okay, we're gonna lose KD. We might lose Kyrie. We'll talk about that later on. But we can't necessarily just burn all of this down and do a complete rebuild. So they're kind of trying to make moves of consequence to be competitive this year while knowing they're losing Kevin Durant.
What it looks like to me, just from the outside looking in and reading the tea leaves of all those moves that you just listed off, Nick, is that they see 2 roads now with KD gone and Kyrie Irving likely soon to follow. They see 2 roads, which one is, hey, we have 2 really, really high-level superstars here in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. We should be able to get some pieces back to complement, because all those guys that you just listed off, not dudes, guys. Remember my definition last week? Those 3 guys that you just listed off, those acquisitions and re-signings, all guys, good guys, but they're not the dudes. You know what I mean? So maybe the Nets are looking at this and thinking we can get dudes. We kept or attained guys. We can trade these two and get some dudes to put around them and still be a competitive basketball team. And if that doesn't work out, what they got in all three of those signings that you just listed off are the type of guys that will be valuable trade assets to teams that are competing, whether it's this year or a year down the road. They will get, I talked about this course maybe being in the future for the Sacramento Kings. If this win now playoff mandate approach doesn't work this offseason, maybe in a year or two from now, you have a valuable asset in a Sabonis to stockpile some draft picks, or in a De'Aaron Fox, or in a Malik Monk, who you just signed today.
Right.
You have guys that will be valuable assets in coming years, 1-2 years from now. So I think the Nets are trying to put together a competitive basketball team with those signings you just mentioned, and thinking, hey, we can get some dudes by trading our dudes. And if it doesn't work, we have some valuable assets to rebuild this thing in a year or two from now.
He's Ramie. I'm Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports 1140. And of course, the Nets, they know, right? I mean, let's not get this thing all twisted up here. Whatever they do with Durant, wherever they trade him, I would imagine they're going to get a fantastic return. I would imagine you're looking at, let's say if you trade him to Boston, Jaylen Brown. If you trade him to Phoenix, DeAndre Ayton, Bridges, Cam Johnson, 3 young players. Again, I don't think, if I'm the Nets, this return has to start with somebody who is already an all-star, or somebody I believe is going to be an all-star, right? If I'm talking to Miami, I'm looking at Jimmy Butler. Bam Adebayo, by the way, if you're wondering, they can't trade Adebayo to Brooklyn because CBA funkiness. They already have Ben Simmons, who is a very specific type of player on a contract that goes along with Bam. It's just trust me when I tell you, they can't trade Bam to the Nets with Simmons still on the roster. Chris?
Isn't it strange that Ben Simmons hasn't been talked about at all during all of this craziness?
It's about as much as he's played basketball in a year. So it all adds up. You talk about a guy as much as he actually plays basketball.
But that's where it starts, right? So when, if you're the Nets, they have to bring back a young all-star for Durant along with a bunch of picks. So I don't think it's like they're going to roll over and die. By the way, we do have some news here from our own Carl Michael Dave. He just tweeted out, the Wizards are the most engaged for John Collins at this point. Sacramento and others are still in the conversation, but the Wizards are at the front of the line. So kind of interesting. Number one, Collins is still out there. People trying to figure out if he's going to be dealt sooner rather than later. The feel is that he likely is going to be dealt sooner rather than later. So, we've been talking about his fit with the Kings. When you look at the situation with Washington, obviously Bradley Beal just signed his big fat contract extension with them, 5 years for the max or whatever it was, like $250+ million. I mean, imagine that, $250 million for Bradley Beal. And if you look at Washington and what they're trying to do, you have Beal, you've got Porzingis. I guess you would say, hey, John Collins is going to be our power forward and Porzingis is going to be the 5. Kind of an interesting mix, Ramie, of talent there.
Yeah, if you can put it together. And I don't hate that, Nick, to be quite honest. I don't mind going a little bit smaller, to have the capability with your depth to go bigger, and that's going to take some more moves and acquisitions. But I don't mind if your front line and your first unit is a little bit smaller. If it includes a John Collins and a Sabonis up front, I think those are two guys that can fill it up. You still need to address the defense, though, man. There has to be somebody out there that wants to play some defense for the Sacramento Kings. I got to keep going back to it. All these moves make them better. John Collins makes them better, but does he address major deficiency for this team in terms of their defense and their ability to stop teams from putting the ball in the bucket? Because they need some guys that are going to address that need at some point, wouldn't you think?
Yeah. I mean, again, Mike Brown is a defensive guy. He's a defensive coach. And I know some people might say, hey, team-wise, you can play some team defense. That is true. but it's difficult to play team defense at a high level if you've got 2 or 3 weak links. It's easier to play team defense if you've got like one weak link, or you've got, one really weak link and somebody who's not the best defender, but he's okay. It's difficult. Like, as this team currently constituted, again, I like the Monk signing, but as the team is currently constituted, you've got 2 or 3 weak spots defensively right now, and you're starting 5. And so will Monty address that? There's still a lot left of the offseason. And for Collins, you look at the Wizards, you look at the Kings, a little surprised. I mean, I've talked about Collins' shortcomings, but, it doesn't seem like it's going to cost you a whole heck of a lot to bring in John Collins. So we'll see who.
The longer he's out there, the more the price goes down, right?
You would think.
Isn't that an indication of the interest that's out there for John Collins?
You would think. So we'll see. Kevin Huerter also has been kind of thrown out there as a possibility. NBA free agency has begun. It's been crazy, as we expected. I'm sure it'll continue to be crazy and maybe even get crazier. Ramie out in Milwaukee. I'm here in good old Sacramento in the studios at Sacktown Sports 1140. I want to remind you, time to check out Coastside Medical Clinic, dedicated to providing breakthrough remedies for men. Man, oh man, I'm telling you, a lot going on. Trying to keep my eye on all of it. We'll continue to chat it coming up next.
One guy's trying not to throw furniture.
That's a personal foul.
While the other's still trying to find some. Cattles and Ramie. Sacktown Sports 1140.
All right, we'll get back to the Kings signing Malik Monk, or at least agreeing to sign Malik Monk, 2 years, $19 million. Damian Jones goes to the Lakers on a 2-year deal. Matt George is reporting that there's not a lot of interest in Rashawn Holmes throughout the NBA. The other part of that tweet from Matt, I think, is the Kings trying to get their word out, which is Mike Brown is pretty high on Rashawn Holmes. I think that might be Monty trying to find some value for Holmes. That's just my guess. Oh, they don't really want to get rid of him. We'll get back to our free agency thoughts, but Frank's been waiting for a long time on hold. And, sorry, Frank, been a lot of news, but let's get to you, my man. Let's hear from Frank. Hey, Frank. Hello, Frank. Oh, Frank, don't blow it. You've been waiting all of this time.
After all that time, Frank?
Oh, Frank.
Oh, Frankie.
Man, oh, man. By the way, the Twitter handle, the NBA Central.
Yeah.
Which, tweets out all sorts of news.
Are they reliable?
Yeah, they
sometimes. Okay.
They tweet out it's like an aggregate website, on Twitter. They tweet out other things that people are reporting, and they just tweeted our guy. They just tweeted a picture of John Collins. Wizards are the team showing the most interest in John Collins per @Carmichael Dave. Yeah, look at that.
Look at that.
We got a local celebrity in the house.
National exposure.
By the way, I just tweeted this out. I feel like things are too quiet now after the crazy first 45 minutes. I feel like something big is going to pop up. But I want to get back to Ramie, this Malik Monk signing in the Twitter poll question that I tweeted out just a little while ago. Your grade for the Monk signing, A, B, C, or D? And right now, so far, Ramie, the reaction is overwhelmingly good. Overwhelmingly good for this Monk signing, 2 years, $19 million. 47% leads this with a B. So 47% of Kings fans give this signing a B. 36.6% give this signing an A. So, I mean, we're talking about, 83% of the vote that's come in, either an A or a B. 12.3% say C, 4% say D. So most people, again, overwhelmingly, people are saying that this is an A or B signing for Malik Monk. And I want to go back to what you brought up last segment, Ramie, because I think it's interesting. We talked about this before the show. JJ brought this up. You asked me if that poll, if it was a grading on a curve kind of situation, right?
Right.
And I think that is part of what Jay brought up this morning, which is, what are your expectations if you are a Kings fan? And I think going in, we told everybody, you've got the full MLE. When it comes to free agency, you're only going to be able to spend $10 million or so. And they have given that full MLE to Malik Monk. Like, Malik Monk is your free agency. You can sign some guys on the vet minimum. Usually good players on vet minimum go to contending teams, so I would not expect anybody that's going to get you super excited to do cartwheels on the vet minimum. So Malik Monk is your free agency. Like, that's your signing. That's your guy. And now we look forward, Ramie, to what might happen here at trade market. Harrison Barnes, Rashawn Holmes, maybe some other pieces that you have. You have your picks. When you look at this, what are your expectations, Ramie? What do you think are reasonable expectations when you look at what the Kings have at their disposal and what might actually be out there for them to get?
I think as far as free agency goes, a Malik Monk type was about what you could and should expect because of what you pointed out in terms of the salary cap and what they had available to them, only the mid-level exception, and for lack of a better term, the status of the Kings, the perception of the Kings around the NBA. It's going to be a minute before this is a desirable destination for NBA superstars to either sign in free agency or try and force their way there through some kind of a trade. So you do have to sort of temper your expectations in terms of the type of player that you're going to be able to bring to Sacramento in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to be totally transparent with you. When you first put that poll up at Nick C Radio, I voted C, just on the merits of the signing alone, because Malik Monk is an above average player. So if you gave me the option of a C plus, I might have voted C plus. But him being an above average player, I gave it a C. If we're grading it on the curve of expectations and what this Kings team can realistically do and the type of talent they can realistically bring in, on that curve, I give it a B. It's a good signing. In my opinion, it could have been a better signing with a Dante DiVincenzo, bringing him back, or doing something with Dante and making some kind of trade to bring in a player that could help you win now, maybe somebody better than Malik Monk. That's the only reason I wouldn't give it an A. But on the curve of expectations, Nick, I give it a solid B, even though I voted C in the poll. I can't take it back. Twitter doesn't give you that option.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make you take it back. It doesn't allow you to take it back. Look, when we start to sift through all of the deals today, I think what's being crystallized is that there's not a whole heck of a lot of big-time talent out there, right? I mean, there's really not. Kevin Durant, look, you're not getting Kevin Durant. DeAndre Ayton is out there. He's somebody that could possibly be brought in, and I don't know how much he moves the needle for everybody out there. I'm not the biggest DeAndre Ayton fan. I mean, I think he's good. I'm afraid of paying that guy $30 million a year, which is what I think it would take. So, maybe Ayton is a name out there, but you look at this, I mean, Bradley Beal just signed his maximum contract with the Wizards. He's not going anywhere, at least for probably another year. So he's off the market. The one guy that's very interesting, Ramie, the one guy that is very, very interesting to me is Zach LaVine. And the reason why I bring up his name is Bradley Beal. His agreement has been leaked. Nikola Jokic, his agreement has been leaked. Devin Booker, his agreement has been leaked. So the guys that we went into today expecting these max contracts to be signed and these huge deals, everybody else has been leaked. Zach LaVine, there has not been a peep about what he's doing. Now, I'm not telling you that he's not going to sign with Chicago. I just find it interesting that, at the beginning of this tampering period, all of the other big fish have been accounted for. LaVine has not as of yet.
Was LaVine on your list?
Yes. 100%. Yes.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Okay. I thought he was maybe a little too rich for their blood.
Imagine this. Imagine you trade Harrison Barnes, Rashawn Holmes, and a few picks, right? You bring Zach LaVine in. Imagine Fox, LaVine, Keegan Murray, Domas. I think you put, at that point, you can slide Malik Monk to the bench and have him be your sixth man. I think Zach LaVine would be fantastic. His age, what he can do on the floor. I think he could be absolutely fantastic. By the way, the Lakers continue to sign people. They just have agreed to a contract with Juan Toscano Anderson.
Ugh.
What was that?
I did not want him to go to LA.
What was that?
For everyone,
Wait,
pull back the curtain.
That was a big time reaction for Juan Toscano Anderson.
Was that actually Chris? I thought that was a drop.
I
was
did
that
too.
actually
That
you
was
live?
Ralad. Ah! Like somebody stabbed him in the stomach.
I thought he stepped on a Lego. Are you okay, man?
Not Juan Toscano. No, Juan. Why?
Anybody, anywhere but the Lakers.
Anywhere but the Lakers. JTA.
Chris for the last 2 hours has been saying, because JTA is his guy. Devin Booker and JTA is his guy. He's like, if JTA goes to Phoenix and teams up with Booker, I'm a Suns fan right now. I'm a Suns guy right now. So we've been monitoring the situation, as they say, for JTA. And I told him that. He's like, where'd they go? He looks at the Lakers. He instantly head drops. Instantly. And then the gut punch.
Like, first it was denial. Like, it can't be possible. Then it was bargaining. Okay, wait. Someone can still get in this, right? It's not official, right?
By the way, if you look, and this is, you know what, I'll hold on to it. There's something about the Lakers signings that infuriate me. We'll get to that. We'll have more NBA free agency. Cattles, Ramie, Sacktown Sports, 1140.
Cattles and Ramie. Sacktown Sports 1140.
I can't stand the Lakers. I really can't stand the Lakers. So I know our guy Carmichael Dave just tweeted out, and Ramie quote tweeted him with the Office. Michael Scott slammed the hand on the desk. Thank you. Carmichael Dave tweets out at, you guessed it, Carl Michael Dave. How is it that the Lakers with Westbrook, LeBron, Anthony Davis seem to sign 18 players every year in free agency? I'll tell you how. Clutch. That's how. And I'm not talking about clutch minutes at the end of games. This is what infuriates me, Ramie. And this is why this entire thing is a joke. So if you're wondering, the Lakers have signed, you might want to do, what do they call them? You might want to cover your ears.
Earmuffs.
Earmuffs. Do earmuffs. Verlad. Yeah. Earmuffs. Juan Toscano-Anderson has signed with the Lakers. Broke Verlad's heart moments ago. Lonnie Walker signs a deal with the Lakers. Damian Jones signed a deal with the Lakers. On and on and on.
Troy Brown Jr.
Signs a deal with the Lakers.
How?
Clutch. That's how. Because you have, hold on. No, sir. Give me my 2 minutes so I can get this off my chest, please.
I'm worked up.
Sorry. I know. I'm worked up too. We're both two middle-aged men worked up on sports talk radio. It's all because of Clutch Sports. LeBron James, Rich Paul, that nice little relationship that they have. This is why you can bring players in on contracts for less money. These are all handshake, slapping the tookus deals with LeBron and Rich Paul. That's what it's all about. It's got nothing to do with Rob Pelinka or Jeannie Buss or the Lakers organization. This is now Los Angeles Clutch. I would not even call them the Los Angeles Lakers. AD, LeBron, THT, Kendrick Nunn, Lonnie Walker, Juan Toscano-Anderson. Those 6 guys, 6 of the current 12 Lakers on the roster, literally half of this basketball team, are Clutch clients. Rich Paul, LeBron James. It is ridiculous. The NBA has a Clutch problem. You have the Lakers bringing guys in because of these relationships. I know it's the Friends League and all of that garbage, but I'm sick and tired of Clutch Sports and Rich Paul running the NBA. It is an absolute joke. I'm done.
So these are all team dumbass rules. These are all team friendly deals that these guys are signing, because Nick, I'm very upfront with the fact that I don't understand the NBA salary cap, man. You seem to have a pretty good handle on it, but every time I think I do, there's some other loophole or exception or luxury tax that you can pay. I never really understand how teams are doing what they're doing. But this seems ridiculous with the Lakers, with some of the contracts they already have on the books, that there's still somehow more money under the cap. Like, how cheap are these guys signing for? How team friendly are these deals? Because they're all Clutch clients. I mean, you're right. The NBA has a Clutch problem, and we talked about that yesterday, this sort of conflict of interest that seems to be inherently there when LeBron James' best friend also runs a sports agency. Like there's something fishy going on there, but the salary cap still applies to them, right? All the rules that are entailed in this all still applies to the Lakers. They don't get an exception because these guys are Clutch clients.
Right. But let me give you an example here. If you're Lonnie Walker and you have a deal for the mid-level at 6.4 million, right, which is the taxpayer mid-level. If you're Lonnie Walker and you've got the Lakers and some other team willing to give you the same money, you're 10 times out of 10 going to sign with the Lakers because of the relationship, because of Rich Paul, because of LeBron. If you are a player that might make a little bit more money, you're more willing to sign for the vet minimum, again, because of the relationships. And I would also say this, Ramie, and here's the dirty little secret. When you have these kinds of relationships and you have guys signing with the Lakers, first day of legal tampering, all of a sudden they're just signing oodles and oodles of free agents. The door is open for some side deals, for some side hustles. And if you pledge your allegiance to Clutch and you sign with King James, things may happen for you. When King James has a movie that he wants to get out there, you might be able to star in the movie. When King
Space
James
Jam 3.
Yeah, when King James wants to, do something else, you might be involved with some of those little side deals. It's all of these under the radar signings that the Lakers make Malik Monk was one of them last year. I don't know if Malik is clutch or not, but they get these guys in there because look at KCP. He was really one of the first examples of this. He signed a contract that nobody was willing to give him. He signed the contract because he's a clutch guy. And there's no denying, there's no doubt that there is hey, if you sign with us, we'll take care of you. And it might not be this year. We'll try to get you some, side hustle. We'll try to get you some work, but we will take care of you. If you sign this 1-year deal, a 2-year deal to help LeBron James, Clutch will inevitably help you somehow, some way. We will get you, we'll get you your money. We'll get you your opportunity. You just got to sign on the dotted line and help us out here. And there's all of these, best buddy little, again, handshake and slap the took his deals. And it's always with these clutch dudes. And that is not a coincidence. This has been absolutely set up. The NBA has a clutch problem, and it all begins in LA with King James.
It is.
I don't, Alvin.
I respect the hustle. On some level, I respect the hustle. I wouldn't be mad at it if I was a Lakers fan or
how
wherever
dare
LeBron
you fix your lips? How dare you say that?
I can't be mad at it, man. And they've rigged the game. They've worked the system. They've worked the system, and the NBA has done nothing to stop them. I would love it if I was a fan of LeBron or the Lakers, that wherever he goes, he takes his agency with him and all the perks that draw these guys to come and play with him. It's a pretty brilliant scheme when you think about it. And until the NBA does something about it, it's a pretty brilliant scheme that we're looking at.
It all goes back, it all goes back to what's happening here and how these relationships are created throughout the NBA. And when you have a city that's passionate like Sacramento wants to add to this team, I mean, honestly, if Rich Paul, for some unknown reason, woke up tomorrow morning and said, I want to go be in the front office of the Sacramento Kings, and that ended up coming together, this same stuff would be happening for the Kings. It's not just about LA. It's not just about the Lakers and everybody wants to jump on the tradition and the history and all the titles nonsense. And by the way, don't count the Minneapolis titles. They were in a different city and state. But everybody wants to sit here and talk about like the Lakers are doing. They're able to get this guy, and that it's strictly because of Rich Paul and LeBron James. And wherever LeBron goes, that power goes with him. And when we talk about a league like the NBA that is a players' league 100%, look at what's going on with KD today in the Nets. He is the most powerful of the powerful. And wherever he goes, he gives that organization that much more stroke. And it's a tough situation because when you're trying to sign a guy, with clutch and you're trying to help and improve your team, you've got to inevitably battle the king in his court in LA. And you're not going to win that battle most of the time. And so it's an issue.
Did you see the Windhorst report earlier that the Lakers and people around the league think the Lakers can pull off a trade for KD and Kyrie?
Yeah, I'd love to know how that would happen. You have to account for like $78 million in cap space. But that's the issue. It'd blow my mind too. All right, we'll continue with the conversation. We'll run through all of the deals that have happened today so far. We'll take a look at some of these contracts that have been agreed to. We'll talk about the Kings and what they've done and haven't done. The Dante DiVincenzo decision. How do you feel about it now that you got Malik Monk? There's just so much to get to. We'll get to all of it coming up. It's Cattles, Ramie, Sacktown Sports, 1140.
Cattles and Ramie. Sacktown Sports 1140.
How are you? Thanks for joining us as always. Sacktown Sports 1140, NBA free agency frenzy happening. A lot of players agreeing to contracts. We'll run through a number of those in a little while. But first, Ramie, the big news of the day, we'll start locally, then we'll go to nationally. Locally, Malik Monk signs a 2-year, at least agrees to a 2-year deal worth $19 million. I like the deal. You like the deal for the Kings. One part of this, and we really haven't dug too deep into this one, but the relationship with De'Aaron Fox. And we know that De'Aaron Fox is vital to this team this year and their success. We know that he played much better basketball after Halliburton was traded for Domas. And I think it's reasonable, or at least fair, to expect that level of play from Fox when he returns this season. And when you look at this pairing in the backcourt, because we would expect, unless another move is made, which there obviously could be, but we would expect that Fox and Monk will be the starting backcourt for the Kings. And if that's the case, combined with this idea of moving on from Tyrese Halliburton and what that did to open up Fox's game, Ramie, I think this move, we look at it from the Monk point of view, and we talk about what he brings to the team. But another part of this is absolutely you could get more out of De'Aaron Fox with this move now that he has his guy in the backcourt with him, level of comfort, chemistry, all of that. So this might not just be, a Malik Monk signing and bring him on and improve scoring and shooting and some playmaking for this team, which he will. This also could help improve Fox even more after what we saw last season.
So you think you could further unlock De'Aaron Fox even more than what we saw last year after the Halliburton trade by bringing in a Malik Monk, bringing in his friends, guys he's comfortable playing with, keeping him happy and content in a Kings uniform and in Sacramento? You think there's even more to unlock from a De'Aaron Fox? Because I'm all for catering to superstars, Nick. I'm 100% in favor of catering to superstars and keeping them happy and content. So they want to stay, but B, you're getting the most out of that guy because he likes where he works. Forbes and every other publication that does this type of research will tell you time and time again, happy employees are better, more productive employees. So I'm all for catering to superstars and keeping them happy and keeping them productive and keeping them staying put with the organization. The question is De'Aaron Fox good enough that you need to be making moves like that to unlock him, to keep him happy, to make him the best De'Aaron Fox that is he worth that type of maneuvering and machinations and catering to that we see for superstars around this league? Because it appears that Monty McNair and the Kings are ready to treat him like a superstar with the money, with the status when they traded Halliburton and gave him much more, if not all of the spotlight, at least until Sabonis was brought in. Is he that type of player? Because I'm not sure he's that type of player, Nick, and it seems like the Kings are pretty dead set on the fact that he is that type of guy.
First thing I would say, and I don't think that you're trying to paint this picture, but the first thing I would say about Malik Monk, I don't want it to sound like the only reason why he got this contract and Monty eyed him was because he's friends with Fox. I don't want to make it sound like that. Malik Monk had a very good season last year. He had his best season really in quite a time, if not his entire NBA career, frankly, last season with the Lakers. He shot the basketball fantastic. He played better defense than we had seen before at the NBA level. He's a legitimate guy. I mean, he again, you're talking about somebody who averaged 14 points a game and shot 47% from the field and 39% from three and improved his defense. He is a legitimate NBA player. If he doesn't sign with the Kings, he's going to sign with another team for probably the same amount of money that he got from the Kings. So I don't want to make it sound like the only reason Monty brought Malik in was because of De'Aaron Fox. He's a legitimate NBA player who's going to help. With that said, when you look at Fox, I don't know. Look, he's not going to be a 30, 32 point a game guy. The way he can improve is to be consistent. And that has been one of his biggest issues. If he can consistently be aggressive, get downhill, consistently knock shots down from distance, if he can consistently play defense and give that effort on the other end, that's when you will truly unlock De'Aaron. I'm not saying that he'll go from, 25 a game to 30 a game. What I'm saying is night in, night out, you'll look at him and say, okay, that's our number one guy. That for this roster, for this team, he is our number one. I think if he gives you that consistency, then this team is better for it, and Fox is better for it. And that's really been the question with him. So I do think Malik Monk will help him. Maybe, we look at Monk, Ramie, and we talk about his defense, and it's definitely going to be a question. Maybe this is a nice passive, aggressive way to tell Fox, hey, man, we got your guy in offensively. You guys are going to be really good in that backcourt, but you need to step up your defense. We need you to be better on that end now to kind of help your buddy out.
Right. We're investing in you. We're investing in you not only with the money that we gave you, but bringing in guys that you're comfortable with playing with, that you enjoy playing with, that you feel like you can succeed with. We're investing in you, and we need to see that investment pay off, and not just in putting the ball in the basket, but on the other side as well. Because I said this earlier in the show, Nick, there's not one guy in the NBA who is not capable of playing at least adequate defense. And when you're the type of athlete that a De'Aaron Fox is, you can probably be really good on the defensive side of things if you apply yourself and if you show an interest and propensity to want to play defense. De'Aaron Fox could be an elite defender for all we know if he put a little more energy into that side of the court. So maybe that is the message that's being sent here. So you think more than bringing him in to appease De'Aaron Fox, it was more of they wanted Malik Monk, and the De'Aaron Fox fit and the appeal of playing with De'Aaron Fox is what brought him here. It's like there's like a chicken and the egg type of question.
Right. I think Monty looked at, he looked at Monk and he said, he helps us in a number of avenues we need help with. He can create his own shot if he has to. We don't have a lot of those guys on this team. He can get a bucket when we need a bucket. He is a tremendous shooter from distance. And I went over these statistics earlier, just in case you missed the numbers. Malik Monk, when you talk about shooting from three, this is from Will_Zimmerly on Twitter. From the corner, he shot almost 41%. Above the break, he shot almost 39%. Catch and shoot threes, he shot almost 42%. And when you talk about pull-up threes, he shot 34.5%. So when you look at league average, those numbers are just through the roof. And so everybody, when this season ended, we all talked about you need shooting. You need shooting. You need scoring. You need shooting. If you're going to have Fox and you're going to have Domas be the two guys that you run your offense through, you need guys out there that can catch and shoot. And now if you look at what Monty's doing, I think Monty looked at Monk and said he's a fit. And then it was even better to Monty, I would imagine, because the Fox relationship. He said not only is Malik Monk a fit, but we also have De'Aaron, and this could help out De'Aaron. These guys have played together before. They've got chemistry. Now, I know people on the YouTube chat, our guy John Williams posted, without Fox, I doubt Monk would be here in Sacramento. I agree with that. I don't think you get Monk if you don't have Fox. I don't think that happens. So I think that relationship certainly put it over the finish line, but Monk himself individually in a vacuum is a dude that helps this basketball team.
Yeah, absolutely. He comes in here and he helps. He addresses some needs, not all the needs, but he addresses some needs. And like you said, if he unlocks De'Aaron Fox or another level of De'Aaron Fox, even better, because it seems to me that they're banking on Fox being that dude for the Sacramento Kings and trying to put the best environment around him to bring that out of him. And I haven't seen that yet, but it could be in there. He's a really good player from what I've seen. Maybe that next level is in there, and he can be a real superstar and an alpha or a number one guy for a championship or contending level basketball team.
Well, here's the other part of that too. We talk about Fox, and really, when you look at this realistically and objectively, what are the options that Monty has, right? Like right now, Fox is the best player you have on this roster. If he plays to his ceiling consistently, he's somebody that can give you 24 to 26 points a night and play good defense. Those guys are not easy to get necessarily. And so if you can't go out there, we talked about this earlier, Ramie, about expectations and who was actually out there. If you can't go out there and get yourself a Kevin Durant or a Bradley Beal or a Zach LaVine, if those guys are unattainable, then if you're Monty, you work with what you've got and you say, well, Fox, he might not be a 1 because he's not really a top 10 to 15 guy. He's not a true alpha, but he's good. And if we have him and we have Domas and we build off of that, because when you look at the NBA and the big picture, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to, find that guy. And unfortunately, again, I hope Kings fans don't get too upset about this, but the shot was in 2018, right? I mean, your shot was to get Luka. You would have had one of those guys. You picked Bagley. What's done is done. So for you to find that next guy, you either have to end up with a top 3 or 4 pick and draft that dude, and he becomes that dude, or you do it in free agency. And right now with this team and what they've done, 16 straight years without the playoffs, you're not going to be able to go land that big-time free agent or trade. And again, the way the league is working now, even through a trade, when you're talking about the best of the best, they're telling the teams where they want to go. So, if you're Monty, you've got Fox and you say, yeah, I know he might not be a 1A, but he's pretty damn good. And if I get him with Domas and I draft a guy like Keegan Murray, who I think will impact this team right away, we're not going to win a championship right now, but I feel like we're taking steps, and maybe, just maybe, you strike gold and De'Aaron gives you that consistency and ends up being a better player than you even thought he was going to be.
Hey, Gary Harris was on your list, right, Nick?
Yeah.
Is he one of the guys on your list?
Yep.
He's gone.
I know.
He's re-signed with the Orlando Magic.
What's up with that?
How's your list?
My Magic,
go ahead.
No, my whole team, my list is going to be the Orlando Magic. Mo Bamba and Gary Harris both returned to Orlando. What?
I was going to say, how's your list looking? Because mine has been ravaged in terms of the guys I was hoping to see end up with the Sacramento Kings before free agency started today. I mean, absolutely destroyed. Like there's almost nobody left on my list here.
All right, so we'll continue to tell you what happened in the NBA today. We got to also talk about Kevin Durant and where this might leave Kyrie and leave the Nets. We still have a lot to get to. Cowdos and Ramie, Sacktown Sports, 1140.
It's the new spot for local sports talk in the afternoon. Cattles and Ramie. Sacktown Sports 1140.
Update all of you on the Twitter poll that I sent out, tweeted out earlier today, grading the Malik Monk signing. And as Ramie brought up earlier, it's a great point. This is on a curve. You gotta figure out what your expectations were and what was actually realistic. And we got about 84% of the people out there saying that it's either an A or a B signing by the Kings. So it seems like the vast majority of people are happy with this signing by the Kings, as far as the vast majority of people who took part in this poll. 12.5% or so give it a C. Just over 3% give it a D. So I would say people, again, on Twitter, those who have voted, you can vote right now at Nick C Radio. The vast majority of people like this signing by Monte McNair and the Kings. 2 years, $19 million for Malik Monk. Aside from what's happening here in Sacramento and the signing of Monk, and Damian Jones goes to the Lakers on a 2-year deal, if you're just joining us. So that happened earlier today. Reportedly from Matt George, not a ton of interest in Rashawn Holmes right now in the trade market. If you were hoping for that trade to happen, we'll see. Of course, things can change. That's the Sacramento piece of what's going on today. But Ramie, really, across this country on ESPN and FS1, everybody's talking about KD. KD has decided to request a trade from the Nets. He wants out. He is done. Let's Chris, if we could grab that Adrian Wojnarowski sound on the Durant trade, the trade request. Let's do that now. So KD, apparently he wants out. He wants nothing to do with Brooklyn. He's moving on with his life. Here was Woj earlier today talking about it.
Kevin Durant called the Nets owner, Joe Tsai, requested the trade today, and then Sean Marks, their GM, he started talking with Rich Kleiman, Kevin Durant's business manager, and there was a sense of inevitability, I think, around the Nets and around Kevin Durant that this day was coming. He had not been in contact with the team for weeks, and after Kyrie Irving opted into his contract last week, neither Kyrie Irving or Kevin Durant were in communication with the team, and there was certainly a lot of back channeling going on around the NBA to suggest, that Kevin Durant was planning to ask for a trade at some point, and it happened today. And now I'm told that already, since the reporting here in the last hour, told that more than half the league has already called Brooklyn about the possibility of acquiring Kevin Durant.
More than half the league is calling. Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports 1140. So Ramie, inevitably we talked about Durant and that part of it, but where does this leave Kyrie? What happens with Kyrie?
He's got to want out now, right?
100%.
And I don't know if they grant him that immediately this off season, or if they try it, because Nick, word around the league was when they were unsure if they were going to keep Kyrie Irving before he opted in, there wasn't a lot of interest in Kyrie Irving, as crazy as that might sound, for the level of player that he is, for all the other stuff, for all the noise and lack of availability. He wasn't in high demand on the trade market. So if I'm the Nets, maybe I'm thinking we start the season with Kyrie Irving and let him bring his stock back up before we trade him. Let him show that he can be reliable and available for a basketball team, and then go shop him between the start of the season and the trade deadline. That's the approach I'd probably take with Kyrie Irving after seeing what the trade market was for him just a week ago when there was so much uncertainty looming over his situation.
Yeah, I don't think the trade market is going to get that much more expanded for Kyrie. I mean, when you look at it, it takes a particular team. First of all, the team wants Kyrie, right? So how many teams truly want to bring this dude into the mix? I told Kings fans this a few months ago, and I stand by it. I would not touch this dude with a 200-foot pole. Even if I were the Kings, I would not bring Kyrie in. You want to talk about culture and trying to fix that?
I think the Kings, I might.
I'm not
16-year playoff drought.
I don't care. I'm not. This guy will blow it up even worse. He'll if you think, say, the next 16 years, no playoffs. If you bring this dude in, he's done.
Here's what I gamble on if I'm the Kings.
I don't want to get in this conversation, Ramie. Can we not do this? Can we not do that? Kyrie's not coming to the Kings. Can we not do this?
Okay, the only thing that I'd gamble on, if I'm any team, when it comes to Kyrie Irving, is maybe this guy finally sees the writing on the wall and knows he has to prove himself to get that next big payday.
Yeah, that's what the last three teams have said pretty much.
I know.
So you need a team that actually wants Kyrie. I don't think there's a lot of teams that actually want him, especially at his money. Then you've got to hope that team has either the cap space, which nobody does, or the contracts to trade you in return. And then you also have to be concerned about point guard depth around the league. Like, bring Kyrie in when you have even somebody like De'Aaron Fox. I mean, Fox is not Kyrie, but Fox is more than good enough to be a starting point guard in this league. He can score you 24, 25 a night. So, you need to find a team that needs a point guard, that has the money or the contracts to make it work, and actually wants Kyrie. And that brings me to the Lakers. Vlad, if we could grab Stephen A. Smith here on the fly, because Stephen A. talked about Kyrie and the Lakers, and here's what he had to say about that.
Kyrie Irving is telling everybody he plans on going to L.A., meaning the Lakers, as soon as he possibly can. The likelihood is that you'll have to go through this season, and then when he becomes a free agent after this upcoming season is over, he plans on rejoining LeBron James in a Los Angeles Lakers uniform. They'll have about $70 to $80 million under the cap. They're going to use it on Kyrie Irving, or so Kyrie Irving has been convinced to believe.
Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports 1140. I'm telling you right now, Ramie, I hope Stephen A. is right. I hope that Kyrie plays somewhere this year, not with the Lakers, and he can sign with them in free agency all that he wants. But I'm telling you, if the Lakers find a way to trade Russell Westbrook and bring back Kyrie Irving, if you want to hear somebody melt down live on the radio, listen to this show when that trade happens, because I will lose my ever-loving mind. I might get fired from both of my jobs. I will not be able to hold it together. The Lakers don't deserve it.
I'd be fine with it. I would love to watch. I would love to watch that thing burn to the ground, just like we just watched Brooklyn burn to the ground. Kyrie, AD, and LeBron. Like, how available are those three guys on a regular basis? LeBron still pretty durable for his age, but he's going to get those load management days. AD, you can't count on that guy to play more than 50, 55 games a year. And Kyrie Irving, you never know when he's going to run off or decide something isn't fair, so he's going to take his ball and go home. Please, please, please let Kyrie go to the Los Angeles Lakers, because I would love to watch that dysfunction go on. As I've said, I'm an agent of chaos. That would be an absolute field day for me when you talk about chaos and what it would be to get Kyrie in Los Angeles. I know people are looking at the last time Kyrie and LeBron got together. This ain't 10 years ago or however long that was. Those aren't the same dudes. LeBron isn't the same guy physically. Kyrie isn't the same guy mentally. He might be in a better physical place than he was at that point, but he's not the same guy mentally. You can't rely on him. And Anthony Davis, unfortunately, generational, transcendent talent. I like Anthony Davis, the dude. He just can't stay healthy. So please, by all means, put that thing together so I can sit back and cackle while it all falls apart.
Dun, 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 dun.
By the
Exactly.
way, we'll see what happens with Kyrie. For KD, I think it'd be interesting, circle back to him for just a second. Don't have to get too deep into this, but just to think about possibilities where he might end up. Like, New Orleans is fun to me. Like, what if New Orleans was willing to trade Zion to the Nets, and you had?
Oh, you're talking the team, the basketball team.
Yeah. The Pelicans, yes.
Not the city overall.
No. Like, I think KD, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, they've got some young pieces like that. That'd be interesting. Another team that I'd look for that might come out of nowhere, and we know this guy is more than willing to take a risk. Masai Ujiri in Toronto. Could you deal Pascal Siakam, a young player or two, and a bunch of picks to bring in KD? We saw him do that with Kawhi Leonard. So a lot of interesting things to play out, but a lot has happened today. We got to get to all of that. I do want to remind you that Coastside Medical Clinic, dedicated to providing breakthrough remedies for men. Ramie and I will run through the list of names that have agreed to contract terms today. It's a long, long list. We'll get to that coming up next.
It's the new spot for local sports talk in the afternoon. Cattles and Ramie. Sacktown Sports 1140.
Always give Rush a little extra time. Neil Peart. Time to get a new mattress. Shop local at Sleep First. We're going to get into all the NBA signings today, or at least agreements in term. We'll get to that in a minute. I'm just going to share my 2 cents about a team nobody cares about. I really dig what the Orlando Magic are doing. And I joked around about Gary Harris and Mo Bamba re-signing, but I really do. I like what they're putting together. They've got a young team, a young, talented team. I think that, look, are they going to be a contender? No, absolutely not. But I do think they're going to be a young, fun team with a chance to get into the playoffs. And, you know, you got Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz, Wendell Carter Jr. They obviously just drafted Paolo Banchero. They bring back Bamba. They hit a home run with Franz Wagner last year in the draft. They've drafted Jalen Suggs. He wasn't as good as expected in his rookie season, but I think he'll be fine eventually. They bring back Gary Harris, who's a nice bench piece. They got young RJ Hampton, who I think has some potential. They've got a lot of young, fun talent on that team. I like what they're doing. They're putting themselves in position to, you know, if they need to make a move or want to make a move down the road, they've got a lot of options. So I like what they're building in Orlando.
When was the last time you said that? I like what the Magic are doing.
Shaq and Penny back in the day.
Yeah. Then they screwed that all up.
The other team that's sneaky, by the way, is Houston. I like what the Rockets are doing. Jabari Smith, Şengün, Jalen Green, Kevin Porter. They got like all the Nets picks coming up unprotected for like the next 5 or 6 years. They're another like organization they're building this just bunch, like this big group of young talent with a bunch of picks, and they're positioning themselves to maybe if they have the opportunity to make that one big move. All right, so let's take a look, Ramie, at everything that's happened today, or at least most of what's happened today. Hit my music, Chris Verlotta, as we run through this. As we know, Malik Monk is a king. 2 years, $19 million. I had a typo that said $119 million. Boy, would that be a deal from Malik Monk. KD has requested a trade, as we know.
Hey, man, Jalen Brunson got it. Why not Malik Monk?
Yeah, Jalen Brunson, 4 years, $104 million. Even though I saw Woj tweet out that Brunson, he has a 4-year, $106 million deal in his hand, and he was going to meet tonight with Dallas. So there's been a little back and forth, some source-offs between some of the best in the NBA as far as insiders go. There have been some saying there's no meeting with the Mavs. There are some saying there is a meeting with the Mavs, but it looks like Brunson will be around 4 years, $104 million. Jaren Jackson Jr., we didn't get to this earlier. He had surgery on a stress fracture in his right foot. He's going to be out 4 to 6 months. So that is an interesting story. Not a deal, but an interesting story that came out today. Miami has submitted a trade offer for Donovan Mitchell. We'll see if that happens. Bradley Beal agreed to a 5-year, $251 million deal. Nikola Jokic, 5-year Supermax, agreed to. Devin Booker, 4-year Supermax, agreed to. Mo Bamba returning to Orlando. Isaiah Hartenstein going to the Knicks. Anthony Simons signed a big deal today. 4 years, $100 million to stay with the Blazers. Nicholas Batum is staying with the Clippers. The Clippers have roughly 9 wings on that roster. They got to trade at least 4 of those dudes. He signed a 2-year, $22 million deal. PJ Tucker, 3 years, $33 million or so with the 76ers. The Grizzlies keep Tyus Jones. I like that by them. Chris Boucher, Raptors, 3 years, $35.25 million. Thaddeus Young goes to the Raptors, 2 years, $16 million. Danilo Gallinari is going to be bought out reportedly by the Spurs. It looks like it's going to be either the Bulls or the Celtics who sign him. That's according to Jake Fisher. Old friend, use that term loosely, Marvin Bagley III, 3 years, $37 million with the Pistons. In the last hour or so, Patty Mills returning to the Nets, 2 years, $14.5 million. The Rockets, again, I just talked about them. Another young piece, Jayshawn Tate, 3 years, $22 million. I like that deal. Lonnie Walker goes to the Lakers on a 1-year, $6.5 million deal. Nick Claxton, 2 years, $20 million, returning to the Nets. Juan Toscano-Anderson signs with the Lakers. JaVale McGee reaches a deal with the Dallas Mavericks. Sounds like McGee is actually going to start for Dallas at center this year. At least that's the plan. We just mentioned Gary Harris with Orlando. He signs a 2-year deal, $26 million. So that is out of the price range. If you were looking at the MLE, the Kings had about $10 million. You know, he was on my list, but he got $13 million a year for 2 years from Orlando. So he priced himself out of that MLE market, which is probably why he returned to Orlando. Kevin Knox, 2 years, $6 million with the Detroit Pistons. And Carl Michael Dave earlier during the show tweeted out that if you're wondering about John Collins, the Wizards are the front runners for John Collins. Dave also tweeted that the Kings continue to have conversations with the Hawks about Collins, but the Wizards are in the front of the line. And there has been no trade from the Hawks today, whether it's Bogey or Herder or Collins. All three of those guys have been thrown out at different times. They have not made a trade just yet. Of course, they brought DeJounte Murray in yesterday. So a lot of people expect John Collins to eventually be dealt sooner rather than later. And we'll see if he does go to the Wizards. So there's kind of your NBA free agency update. A name that we did not bring up, Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports 1140. Ramie, a name that we did not bring up, and we were talking about this guy yesterday, and I said, oh, I love him. Love them coming out of college. I think he's a good NBA player. He really improved last year for Charlotte. Miles Bridges. And Miles Bridges last night was arrested for domestic violence, felony domestic violence. Not many details out there just yet. TMZ broke the story last night. I couldn't find any details about exactly what happened. I know some people were tweeting, speculating that it was pretty ugly from what they had heard. Who knows if that's true or not. But man, oh man, talk about a swing, right? Miles Bridges was seen as somebody who was probably going to be signing a contract for 20, 25 million a year. And now, I mean, what do you do, Ramie, if you're the Hornets? I don't know what you do. They've been trying to make trades and get rid of contracts to sign him to a long-term deal. And now you see last night, dude get
make it sound like I'm belittling the situation, but when it comes to guys that are in the situation that Miles Bridges now is in, and apparently has put himself in with some bad decision making and some abhorrent behavior, if what we're hearing is true, felony assault, you have to have done something pretty serious and pretty heinous,
yes,
to be charged, or at least be accused of something pretty serious and pretty heinous. But the way NBA front offices and sports front offices almost have to approach these things is somebody's going to pay this guy. Somebody is going to sign this guy and bring him in, and he's going to help them win basketball games. And you hope he figures things out off the court and you don't have an incident like this again in the future. But the competitive landscape of the NBA, especially if you're the Hornets, and this is a guy that you're trying to keep in the fold, it almost requires you to gamble on a guy who's done or is accused of doing something like he's accused of doing, because the sad reality is, in a year, 2, 3 years from now, if Miles Bridges is putting up big numbers and helping Charlotte or somebody else win basketball games, this isn't going to be at the forefront. This isn't going to be what people are talking about. Unfortunately, stories like this fade from the headlines, and guys can find fame and glory again through their achievements on the court or whatever the field of play might be. If I'm Charlotte, it's a little harder to commit to this guy and to invest in him. But at the same time, somebody is, and if he doesn't have an incident like this again, it's going to pay off for that organization. That's the sad truth of it, Nick. You know what I mean? If he's guilty of what he's accused and charged with, I want to see him. You probably want to see him. Anybody within the sound of our voice right now wants to see him punished to the furthest extent of the law and whatever authority that the NBA might have. But the reality is, will he, or will he go on to be a very good basketball player? And this will be a footnote in the story of Miles Bridges.
Well, a couple of things. Charlotte did extend the qualifying offer to him, which is roughly $7.9 million. A team would have to reach out and offer a deal that was worth more money than that. The Hornets would have an opportunity to match that contract and bring him back. So now you start to play the game of who actually has a lot of space, cap space, who would be willing to bring him in. I don't think anybody at this juncture would be willing to sign and trade and give anything asset-wise for a guy who just got arrested for felony domestic violence. So I don't think he's going to make that big money this offseason. I think his best scenario right now is probably getting that, 1-year deal or whatever the case may be from Charlotte and make that money now. Charlotte, we talk about how it's an incredibly tough spot for them. They're actually fortunate because they did not make as many moves as they could have. Imagine if this arrest happened 2 or 3 weeks from now, and imagine if they gave him the bag. Then they would have been really stuck. So the Hornets are actually very lucky that he got arrested last night. Like literally the day before free agency started, he gets arrested because that might have saved them $100 million. And also possibly trading other guys off of your roster to sign him to that. By the way, here's another signing. This is a great signing. The Minnesota Timberwolves have agreed to a deal with Kyle Anderson. That's a great signing by the Timberwolves. I like Anderson an awful lot. So Anderson goes to the T-Wolves. That deal is done according to Adrian Wojnarowski. We'll have more Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports, 1140.
Sacramento has a new tag team in the afternoons.
You're talking to the original tag team of ugly pukes here.
It's Cattles. It's Ramie. Sacktown Sports 1140.
Literally just choked to death right before we came back.
You okay, buddy?
Yeah, sound like Verlad when Juan Toscano Anderson signed with the Lakers. Ramie, let me ask you this. We're going to be off until next Wednesday for the 4th of July. Everybody, by the way, happy holidays. Have a fantastic holiday weekend. We're off Monday and Tuesday. Zachariah will be in for Ramie and I tomorrow with JJ on the 1s and 2s. Let me ask you this, Ramie. Kevin Durant, is he gone from Brooklyn by the time we get back on Wednesday?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Probably by tomorrow, I would guess.
I'll be upset I'm calling into the show tomorrow if he gets traded tomorrow. I'm calling in. I've already told JJ I'm gonna place that phone call if he gets
zoom in or call it.
Call in. Easier
Okay.
to call in. Yes.
All right.
And I don't know where I'll be or what I'll be doing, so I absolutely don't want to Zoom. I might get in trouble. So I'll be calling from whatever I'm doing. All right, so he's gone. Kyrie by next Wednesday. Gone?
No, I don't think so. The market just isn't there for him right now, so I don't think he is.
By next Wednesday, John Collins. Gone?
That's a coin flip to me. I'll say yes. I'll say there is movement on John Collins by the time we reconvene as the Cattles and Ramie show.
How about Kevin Huerter? Gone?
Probably. Yeah, that's the type of move that shouldn't take too long to go through.
By the time we come back on Wednesday, have the Kings made another move? And that has to be a trade. Again, I just want to remind people, their free agency is done. They have no more money. They signed Malik Monk, or at least agreed to terms. I like the signing. Ramie likes the signing, but that's it for them in free agency. Aside from vet minimums, they can sign vet minimum guys, but, bigger name guys, they're done. So we're talking trade. Do the Kings make any kind of trade before we get back on Wednesday?
No. I'm going to say no. I don't think there's any more movement.
McNair.
I think KD's gone by Wednesday. I agree with you. KD is always, every time he makes a move, it's right around like July 1st, right? 4th of July when he signed with the Warriors. I'll never forget that. It was like right on the 4th. And I saw a tweet today. It's crazy how this works. 3 years ago to the day is when he and Kyrie announced that they were joining the Nets. 3 years ago to the day. Could you imagine the Nets? Like, there's no way they ever thought that this was going to be what's going on.
No, nobody ever thought. Nick, do you remember when that thing went down? And especially when they added James Harden. Everybody was like, that's a wrap. The only other time I remember, well, 2 other times I remember people feeling like a championship was a foregone conclusion, the way that they seemed to when Brooklyn put that trio together was the Miami Heat when they had LeBron and Wade and Chris Bosh and the Bulls of the 90s. I never remember people talking about a team or a trio like the Brooklyn Nets the way that they did, other than those 2 teams. Everybody thought it was just, well, the Nets are champs. They just put together a championship team. Maybe I heard multiple people say maybe the most talented trio that any basketball team has ever put together. Nobody thought that this thing would blow up to the degree that it has blown up. Kyrie had some weirdness floating around him before he got to Brooklyn, but it went to another level when he got to Brooklyn. And James Harden got to another level with his weirdness when he got to Brooklyn. The only guy that they really got what they invested for out of that trio was Kevin Durant, and that I don't blame him for wanting out of there when he's the only guy between Kyrie, between James Harden, between Ben Simmons, and between the Nets as an organization. Kevin Durant was sitting there going, I'm the only one holding up my end of the bargain. I'm the only one pulling my weight in what we all had in the goal that we all collectively had when we came together in Brooklyn.
It's kind of crazy. If I said 5 months ago when Harden, Irving, and Durant were on the Nets, if I told you 5 months later that Ben Simmons would be the final man standing on the Nets roster, you would have called me crazy. Out of the, you would have said, wait, Ben Simmons went to the Nets? And I'd say, oh, yeah. And then KD and Kyrie both wanted out. So now you're left with Ben. I mean,
oh, you're loco, man.
They have to. And that's why I think, they have to swing a gigantic deal for Kevin. We're talking about the biggest return that we've ever seen. All right, last couple of minutes of the show. It's not really how you want to end a show going into a holiday weekend, but we haven't talked about it. We've talked NBA all week. Speaking of next Wednesday, by Wednesday, when we come back Wednesday, Ramie, will the NFL have announced their decision as far as what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson? It would actually be the arbitrator's decision, but will we have a Deshaun Watson suspension on the books by the time we get back Wednesday?
The way that they've dragged their feet with this thing and have been so slow to react and make a decision regarding Deshaun Watson, this is a risky bet on my part, but I think we will. Like, today was the last day of those disciplinary hearings with the judge, with the arbitrator. I can't imagine that they're going to drag this through the weekend and all the way until next Wednesday before we hear whatever course of action the league is taking with Deshaun Watson, if any.
I've said this for a while now. I thought tomorrow was always going to be the day, right before the 4th of July, roughly at 5 o'clock on a Friday, the news dump. I think we're going to find out what's happening with Watson. I do not think it's a coincidence that the hearing began this week after they dragged their feet. I don't think it's a coincidence that the hearing ended today and finished up. It just so happened to be.
The timing is lining up for your prediction.
Yeah. I mean, it's so. I mean, it's too coincidental to think that. And to tell you where things are, Mike Florio tweeted out a string of tweets here on Thread. Pretty interesting stuff. He said the NFL interviewed 12 alleged victims. The hearing focused on 5 of the women making allegations. The case presented by the NFL included no evidence of violence, threat, force, or coercion by Watson. The NFL also admitted that the punishment it seeks, which is indefinite suspension of at least 1 year, is unprecedented. And they also admitted that its security director investigated Robert Kraft and that no punishment was imposed on him. So, reading those tweets from Florio doesn't sound like the NFL had a great case. Could end up being wrong on that, but, they have no evidence of really much of anything after speaking to, 12 women that were involved. 5 of them were the one, that alleged this activity. And, this punishment they're asking for is unprecedented. I think they've got to give him a year. I expect him to get a full season of a suspension. That's at least my thought on it. And I think the NFL has to set this kind of precedent when you have a case like this, man. When you got, 24 women alleging this, settled 20 of those cases. I just think they have to, they know that there's a lot of pressure on them and they got to set this precedent. But the NFL, it's not like they have a ton of credibility either. All the
right.
investigations that they've held have been pretty much jokes. So,
and I'm not here to defend Deshaun Watson, but the precedent of Robert Kraft, the precedent of a Daniel Snyder, the precedent of a Jerry Jones, are the players held to a higher standard than the guys who actually are funding the institution of the NFL, the owners of this league, the 32 collective owners of this league? Are their employees held to a higher standard in terms of how they represent the league and the things that they do away from the field than the owners? Because if they are, that's a strange line to draw.
So we'll see what happens. We'll be back on Wednesday. Again, everybody enjoy your 4th of July. Be safe, be good. Don't pull a JPP. Make sure your limbs are intact. Thanks to Ramie in Milwaukee. Ramie will be back here on Wednesday with me in studio. Thanks to Ramie for his work the last 2 weeks. Thanks to Vlad, to JJ, to everybody. Again, have a great holiday weekend. Be safe, be good, be healthy. We're back on Wednesday. Zachariah tomorrow. It's Cattles, it's Ramie, and it's Sacktown Sports 1140.